Hi, welcome back to Focal Point on AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. The program is Focal Point. The network is AFR Talk. I said I was going to talk about this haunted house business in the second segment, and I forgot all about it because I wanted to work through the content of that column that I had written. It's up at rightlyconcerned.com if you want to find it. But this movie, The Conjuring, has come out, and it was a box office smash, brought in $41.5 million over the weekend, even though I think they've already doubled what it cost to make it. I think about a $20 million movie, so they're making bank off of this movie. And the fascinating thing about the movie is that it apparently is based on a true story on a family that lived in a farmhouse for a decade and claimed that the place was haunted. Now, The Blaze has a story today by Billy Hollowell featuring an interview with Andrea Perron, who is now 55. She was 12 when the family moved into the farmhouse, so she lived there from the age of 12 through the age of 22. And she said that the appearances of spirits were allegedly rampant inside the house. She and her sisters, she says, saw a ghost or a spirit on the first day they arrived. This would be a demon. This is just a demonic spirit. That's what they saw. You can call it a ghost if you want. It's a demonic spirit. As they were bringing boxes into the home, she recalls seeing a man standing inside the dining room. She said, I saw my first full-body apparition at the age of 12 on the day that we moved into the farm. He looked totally mortal. I just said good morning and kept on walking. And then she says from there, the situation intensified. The movie, I guess, has birds flying into the house at all times. In reality, she said they were bats. I don't know why they didn't use bats, because to me that'd be spookier than birds, but bats would fly down the chimneys and then open windows and terrorize the family. And apparently at some point in the film, there was apparently what the movie portrays as an exorcism. There was some kind of paranormal team that came in to try to deal with this, do a paranormal exorcism. I don't believe that they were people of Christian faith. And so I think they tried to do it using what amounted to a seance, which is just another way of inviting demonic spirits into your world. We see Jesus doing it. I mean, you can call them exorcisms. I just refer to them as deliverances, where people are delivered from the oppressive power of demonic spirits. Jesus did it all the time. And some people say, well, Jesus was just accommodating himself to the superstition of the people of his day. Well, Jesus didn't do that kind of thing. Remember, he said in John 14, he was talking about heaven, the afterlife, what's coming. And he said, I'm going to prepare places for you to live, and I'll come back and get you. He says, if it were not so, I would have told you. If it were not so, I would have told you. If this business about demonic spirits was just superstition, they were all imaginary beings, they were all made up, they were just a figment of people's imaginations, I would have told you. If it were not so, I would have told you. So we know from the teaching of Jesus himself that demonic spirits exist, that demonic spirits can inhabit the bodies of people, that demonic spirits even can inhabit places. And that's what we're seeing, I think, pictured in this movie. I don't know if you remember the guy that Jesus delivered of demonic spirits. He was the guy that was blind. I don't remember what the name of the village was now. I can't think of it. I think it was Bethsaida maybe. But at any rate, Jesus brought him out of the village to deliver him, to heal him. And he made one application on his eyes. And he asked the guy, what do you see? And he says, well, I see men like trees walking about. It only partially took. So Jesus had to do what he did a second time. And this time his eyesight was completely restored. But the demonic oppression was so heavy on him that it even took Jesus 2 tries to get him completely free and get him restored to health. You remember when he was dealing with the Gerasene demoniac, the guy that had the legion of demons. It was an extended exchange between Christ and the leader of that demonic horde that had invaded that man's body. Jesus commanded these spirits to come out, and they didn't come. They fought. They resisted. Jesus commanded again, and they still wouldn't come out. And finally, Jesus negotiated terms of surrender with these demonic spirits. Basically, Jesus said, look, you're coming out one way or another. You're coming out. You're not staying in that guy. I'm not going to let that guy continue to be oppressed and demonized and in bondage like he is. So you got no choice. You're coming out. And the demons say, well, and then at least let us go into the pigs. And Jesus strikes a deal with them. Okay, you can go into the pigs, commands them to leave. They go out, go into the pigs. Pigs run down the hill and drown. But the point I'm making there is that was a protracted deliverance session. They didn't come out just with the first command that was issued in the name of Christ. And so sometimes demons can get so entrenched in the lives of people or in a circumstance that it is a pitched battle to set that person free. And so what happened here apparently was not a deliverance that was done by somebody who could use the name of Christ, who could use the cross of Christ, who could use the blood of Christ. And apparently from what the story goes on to say, that farmhouse is still haunted by demonic spirits because no one has gone back in there and sought to cleanse that place with the blood of Christ and in the name and the power of Jesus Christ. My own family, we've experienced demonic presences in our home. And I read a book by Neil Anderson called The Seduction of Our Children. It was a book about how Satan attacks our children. This was when my eyes first became opened to the reality and the possibility of spiritual warfare. And I read this book on how Satan goes after children. And I had never even really thought about it. You sort of think of children as immune from that and protected from that. And I'm not going to go into details about how they affected my children, but I didn't know enough even to ask them if they had experienced some of this. And what Neil Anderson encourages parents to do is go to your young children and ask them if they've ever sensed a dark presence in their room. Have you ever felt the presence of evil or some kind of dark presence in your room that makes you afraid? Now, a lot of kids have this. There's a monster under the bed. There's a monster in the closet. And what do the parents say? Oh, it's just a figment of your imagination. They don't exist. Look, they go over and they open the closet. Look, there's nothing there. Shine a flashlight under the bed. Look, there's nothing there. It's all a figment of your imagination. Well, the kid knows there's something there. But the parents, whom they trust and believe, tell them, no, it's nothing there. It's just a hyperactive imagination. And so these poor kids then are sort of left to deal with this presence of evil in their rooms. Their parents aren't helping them. They don't know how to get free of that thing. And so they're just kind of left to deal with that. And then eventually the demonic spirits will decide they've done about all they can do as a child gets older and those techniques don't work as much as they used to. Then they'll maybe just kind of let up because they've done their job of instilling fear in the heart of that child. So I went to my children, they were 5 and 7 at the time, and I asked them, have you experienced some kind of evil experience in your room? And both of them said yes. And, they'd been dealing with this for years, and I asked them, why didn't you come to me, and why didn't you talk to me about it? So, well, I didn't think you would believe me, or I was afraid to. I've prayed with some children who had dealt with demonic presences in their rooms, and they were acting out against their parents. This is what brought me into the conversation. They were very disobedient and very rebellious to their parents. These are sweethearted kids. And so I went to them and said, why are you doing that? Can you help me understand what's going on? And I would ask them if they'd experienced any demonic presences in their room. They had, and these demonic presences would tell them, look, if you don't disobey your parents, I'm going to hurt them. If you don't disobey your parents, I'm going to kill them. And so the girl was frightened then, out of her love for her parents, wanted to protect them, frightened into disobeying them. And once we dealt with the demonic spirits and took authority over them, then that problem was resolved and it went away. And in the case of one of my children, it was a protracted battle. In the case of one of them, we prayed one time in the room. We issued a command. The demons went. They never came back. The oppression in that case wasn't that severe. Like for the other child, it was much more protracted, much more intense. And the demonic presences were actually not in the room. They were actually outside the room. They'd appear outside the window, the bedroom window of the child. And, I said to this, so we prayed. I prayed for this child, and I took authority over those demonic spirits and commanded them to go. And they went away. But then several nights they came back. And that's what the child reported to me, that they had come back. So we prayed again. and they went away, but then they came back again after several days. And finally I said, look, the reality is, I said this to my child, who was like, 7 at the time. I said, look, you have as much authority in the name of Jesus as I do. And I think what's going on here is I think the next time they show up, you are going to need to be the one that prays. You are going to need to be the one that takes authority over them in the name of Jesus and commands them to leave. And so the next time they showed up, that's what the child did, and they were gone, and they never ever came back. So I think the bottom line here is I think we need to take seriously what the scriptures say. We don't want to get spooked out about this. God is the only one to fear. Satan is not somebody to fear. In fact, that's the only tool he has is to try to stir up fear. He doesn't really have any power. The only power that he has is in the lie. He gets authority and place in our lives by telling us lies, getting us to believe them. Remember with Eve in the garden, he had absolutely no authority in her life until she believed the lie. He told her a lie. He was powerless over Eve's life, powerless over Adam's life, until he convinced Eve to believe a lie and to mistake a lie and think it was the truth and then act on it. It's not just believing a lie, it's acting on a lie. And when we do that, that's when Satan gets some kind of foothold. That's when Satan has been given some kind of permission to come into our lives. That's why there's so much of an emphasis in the Bible on the truth, why we've got to be guided by the truth, because the only tool, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, the only weapon that Satan has is deception. That is it. That's the only tool that he's got in his kit is deception, to lie to us, to get us to believe those lies, to get us to act on those lies, and then he has some kind of a foothold on their lives. I've experienced it myself. One night, it was, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and this is, by the way, when covens, and there are covens, these are clusters of witches that meet. They'll start meeting at midnight. They'll break up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they will send demonic spirits out on assignments against their chosen targets. One night, 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm awakened by something grabbing my ankle. Had never happened to me before. It's never happened to me since. But something grabbed my ankle, was trying to pull me out of the bed. I realized immediately what it was. I knew I needed to say the name of Jesus. I tried. His name got stuck in my throat. They even tried to keep me from saying the name of Jesus. When I was finally able to say his name, the name of Jesus, it broke, went away, and it was lifted. Focal Point, AFR Talk.